John, thanks for joining me today talking about supply chain. I wanted to get your perspective because you had a very unique perspective coming from the CPA industry and in all of your years of experience on why now is such an important time for manufacturing and distribution companies to address the supply chain, because we've seen so much chaos globally in the supply chain. Tell me your thoughts about it.
Well, supply chain is one of the biggest factors today impacting so many of our clients and their ability to be able to have throughput at an effective cost as well as timing. And what we found is many times the supply chain had been down lower on the totem pole with respect to importance, and we've seen it accelerate up to at or near the top many times now because of the interruptions that are occurring. And what companies are needing to do oftentimes is, now what do we have to do here to get this straightened out? And they really haven't necessarily paid enough attention in the past, or as much as they might have otherwise shown or paid or provided, so that they now are trying to get in underneath that supply chain to figure out what they can do to help mitigate many of the supply chain interruptions that are occurring.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've seen from my experience over decades of working with manufacturing and distribution companies, a lot of these companies are owned and operated and come from a mindset that sales is everything. And the whole organization is driven by sales. In fact, I had a conversation just this week that with a fairly substantial company that the sales guys really had their fingerprints all over the logistics portion of it. In fact, they were the ones negotiating the contracts with little to no training. And unfortunately, companies, from my perspective, have failed to invest in the technology and the people in their supply chains, and consequently got caught red-handed when the pandemic struck. They were not agile, they didn't have the data, they didn't have the ability to pivot and take advantage of the situation. And I really think that's a critical thing that we're going to see going forward in the supply chain because of all the chaos we've seen. Those companies that address it and perform better in the supply chain markets will win market share. Just simple as that. We all are familiar with what happened when everything got shut down a year ago, and the small mom and pops couldn't provide materials, yet Amazon could deliver. They grew like crazy, right? One of my things I tell my clients, the best ability is availability. And when we all remember the toilet paper crisis from the beginning of the pandemic, it didn't matter if you were a Scott's guy or whatever, it just mattered what you could get your hands on. And so that's what it's come down to. We've seen that so often with semiconductors, with commodities, with toilet paper. All kinds of industries have suffered from it. And when you've got your product available, that can be a huge competitive advantage. So thank you for your time. Is there any thoughts you have from specifically on the supply chain, why they should be addressing?
I think that you hit on it, that many times supply chain hasn't had the resources available to it in the past, and what many companies are now focusing, that they may have had a weakness there, and they're turning to people like you and others that have that experience and knowledge, and coming back to, let's try and make this into a strategic advantage where we're going to be experts at this supply chain utilization, effectiveness, and efficiency. And so they're trying to identify resources that they can have to help accelerate them to make it an advantage as opposed to a disadvantage, which it currently is.
I love that perspective. That's something I tell my clients all the time. It's really important to invest back into your supply chain because most of the competition is not. And when you do, you can create a great competitive advantage in the marketplace. Like I said, if you can have your product there faster, cheaper, more effectively, that's a big advantage in the marketplace. So, well, great, John. Thank you for that. I appreciate your thoughts and feedback. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.